Sometimes there's a pure gem of a story that just doesn't get enough attention. And today, I'm honored to tell you one of the most inspirational stories you will ever hear. But before we begin, I recently did a video with the FIFA America where we talk about the US men's national team and the World Cup qualifiers as a whole.
Look at this, we created this. This didn't exist before we were here.
It was a really fun conversation to have, and I highly recommend you check out the video after watching this one. And if we could get 3,000 likes on this video, that'd be fantastic. Based in the Tohoku region, Vegalta Sendai is not just your ordinary Japanese club. The club's fan base are some of the most passionate supporters in the entire country, at times leaning towards chaotic even. Fans will sing tunes of punk rock songs with their own little twist, and their theme song played before every match is Take Me Home Country Roads by John Denver. And let me tell you, if you've ever sung this song with a group of people, it is an out-of-body experience like no other. By the chorus, you'll have ascended to a different plane of existence never seen before. However, with passion comes expectation, and if Vegalta Sendai wasn't playing well, fans would not be afraid to confront the players on the pitch or even off. The Japanese club was founded in 1988 as Tohoku Electric Power Company Incorporated Soccer Club, nicknamed Brummel Sendai. The club's name was changed to Vegalta Sendai in 1999 after joining the J-League 2nd Division, the J2 League. The name Vegalta comes from the two names Vega and Altair of the Tanabata legend. Sendai were promoted to the J-League in 2002 only to find themselves back in J2 after a couple years. In 2008, Tohoku-born Makoto Tegaramori was appointed manager. Having studied coaching in Barcelona and worked under Arsene Wenger, Tegaramori's experience immediately translated into success. Vegalta Sendai, under their brand new manager, promoted to the J-League in just 2 seasons for the first time in 7 years. Their first season back in 2010 saw them survive, finishing 14th. Then came the 2011 J-League season, where again, most people saw Vegalta as relegation favorites. However, after an opening match in Hiroshima, Vegalta supporters and the entire region would have their fates changed forever. On March 11, 2011, at 2:46 p.m. Japanese Standard Time, the Tohoku region experienced a magnitude 9.1 earthquake, the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in the country and the 4th worst in the world since record-keeping began in 1900. The strong seismic waves disrupted the water surrounding Japan's coastline, and 3 minutes later, tsunami warnings were sounded. But despite those warnings, people only had about 20 minutes to flee, often much less. Waves up to 40 meters crashed onto the shores. Homes and livelihoods were destroyed within a split second as rushing waters tore apart infrastructure like a paper shredder. Helpless people were washed away, with many of their last moments being hopelessly drifted away from their family members by the sheer force of the water. And those surviving family members have wounds that will never be fully healed. Some of their memories are so deeply rooted in their minds that instead of fading away into the void of forget, they actually become more vivid as time passes. 19,747 lives were lost that day, and another 2,556 are still missing. The tsunami left behind devastated lands covered in tons of debris, with over 500,000 people displaced. The disaster had also destroyed the heart of many areas' economies. Agriculture and fishing communities were horribly devastated. As a result, this disaster quickly became a humanitarian crisis, with survivors living in temporary housing that did not have a sufficient supply of food, water, and medicine. Immediately after the disaster, Sendai Stadium, Yurtec Stadium Sendai, quickly became a hub for emergency supplies. Vegalta supporters would distribute the boxes of supplies to those in need, and sometimes they would even help clean up excess mud in affected towns. Everyone's immediate instinct was to find some way to help victims, and the players were no exception either. Many visited devastated areas to volunteer or interact with victims just to give them a moment to forget the pain.
そして東北のその震災にあって苦しんだ人たちのね、希望になるような活動をしていこうっていうところは同じ思いだったですよね。
Because of the earthquake, the J-League matches were postponed for 6 weeks. Even then, some could see 6 weeks being too little time to heal. However, for Vegalta supporters, it didn't matter how they felt. They just wanted to go back to living again. And the best way to do that was to travel to Vegalta's game away in Tokyo against Kawasaki Frontale. For many going to the match, it was finally the chance to see if their friends had survived or not. A truly grim feeling that was either met with cries of dread or relief as people hugged, having not seen one another since the earthquake. Some fans would also bring possessions of their deceased friends and family to finally lay their spirits to rest. And before kickoff, Vegalta would sing their theme song. 3,000 fans impacted by one of the worst tragedies in recent time, all coming together in a graceful harmony and releasing their emotions through every note. This is why we call it the beautiful game. A banner from the fans was displayed saying, "We will not lose until we rebuild our town." A near impossible challenge, but also a symbol of optimism held by the entire Tohoku region. Kawasaki went one up early on, but then came another moment of togetherness that will never be replicated ever again. Both Frontale and Vegalta supporters started chanting together, a message of unity not just for the clubs, but an entire country in need of it. Vegalta's players had this feeling they had to win, and soon they found the equalizer in the 72nd minute. And then with the game winding down, Vegalta Sendai scored the winner. Supporters having experienced some of the worst days of their lives finally had their moment to once again feel happiness. After the match, supporters in the away end continued to sing their hearts out, with many crying from the overwhelming emotion. The day will go down in the annals of Japanese football history, for it showed us that no matter how tough things get, when we as a community come together, we can get through anything. Although some serious damage was done to Sendai Stadium, there was some rush construction in order to host the club's first home fixture. Vegalta won the match 1-0, and that banner displayed in Tokyo a week before was starting to become more than just fantasy. Sendai went the next 9 matches unbeaten, defeating the likes of Gamba Osaka and Yokohama F. Marinos. A team many presumed were relegation favorites sat second in the league after 12 matches, having at one point even been at the top of the league. However, their 11-game unbeaten streak came to an end when they lost 1-0 to Shimizu S Pulse, and what followed was a summer on struggle street. Sendai went on a 9-game winless run, which saw them dip from 2nd to 10th. It appeared the club's engine, run by the courage of an entire region's hopes, had let off so much steam that it didn't have enough to keep such a phenomenal run going. Psych. Sendai rediscovered their brilliant form and lost just 1 out of their last 13 matches to finish 4th in the league. It's incredible to see a team pegged for relegation show a brilliant run of form, but it is one of a kind to see them rediscover it after a rough patch. But most importantly, the club's inspirational season allowed those who suffered to forget for just a moment. Sometimes fans didn't even need to be at the matches. A single match report was enough to give one a sense of comfort. Obviously, football wasn't going to fully heal someone, but it was an escape from the dread and trauma of March 11th, whether you were a football fan or not. Players and supporter groups throughout the offseason continued their volunteering and helped organize footballing schools for orphan children who had lost their families. Coastal cities, where land was scarce due to temporary housing, were the main targets for these projects. Going into the 2012 J-League season, many believe Vegalta's 4th place finish was because of the tragedy. That claim was immediately thrown in the bin, however, after Vegalta Sendai went their first 9 games unbeaten. Funnily enough, the streak was ended by Shimizu S Pulse for the 2nd consecutive season. However, Vegalta would not dip in form this time, losing just once in their next 10 matches. By matchday 20, Sendai found themselves top the league 1 point above Sanfrecce Hiroshima. Unfortunately, Vegalta's next match against Consadole Sapporo ended in a 2-1 defeat, which resulted in the Tohoku-based club falling to 2nd, 2 points behind Hiroshima. Another draw versus Kashiwa Reysol put their title hopes at risk, but thankfully a win 1 week later followed by a Hiroshima loss meant Vegalta was 1 point behind the league leaders. On matchday 24, Vegalta reclaimed the lead after defeating Kawasaki Frontale, but immediately dropped back to 2nd after losing a top-of-the-table clash in Hiroshima. Another 2 weeks passed, Sendai again dropped points. They were now 5 points behind the league leaders.
You can't keep getting away with this!
But then 2 wins and 1 draw later, with Hiroshima fumbling the bag 3 straight times, and it was all tied up at the top with only 4 games remaining. Matchday 31 saw Vegalta Sendai draw points against 11th place Cerezo Osaka, while Hiroshima defeated bottom place Consadole Sapporo in comfortable fashion, extending the gap to 2 points. 1 week later, and again Sendai could only find a draw, but luckily for them, 3rd place Urawa Reds defeated Hiroshima 2-0. So with just 2 matches remaining, the gap between 1st and 2nd was just 1 singular point. Vegalta realistically needed all 3 points in their next match against an Albirex Niigata side fighting to survive the drop. Both Hiroshima and Sendai's matches began at the same time, and in the 17th minute, Vegalta Sendai conceded while Hiroshima found themselves up 1 against opponent Cerezo Osaka. Hiroshima doubled their lead just 3 minutes later, and now Vegalta Sendai's title hopes were in danger as they continued to put the pressure on the relegation candidates. Unfortunately, despite the many opportunities, Vegalta failed to score a goal. just the 5th time that season. On the other side of the country, Sanfrecce ended up winning 4-1 and were crowned 2012 J-League champions. After an entire season being the symbol of hope for an entire nation, it had to be a crushing feeling to fall short of the ultimate prize. But at the end of the day, it didn't matter whether Vegalta won the title or not, because what this club had done through these last 2 years was even greater. Not only was Vegalta Sendai a symbol of hope, but it also reminded those affected they still had a purpose. No matter how bad things get, it doesn't have to mean the conclusion. And in the case of the Great Tohoku Earthquake, there are stories within the depths of darkness that tell us some of the most heartbreaking and horrifying stories. When you see the before and after images of some Japanese towns that now look like complete wastelands, you can't help but think that these areas are forever lost. However, just through the strength of will and humanity, we have seen many communities build back up. Some even have started to thrive again as the townspeople are now mended together more than ever. When I think about the most precious quality of a human being, it's their resilience. And Vegalta Sendai's 2011 and 2012 seasons resembled a part of that everlasting resilience embedded in each and every single one of us. So this was when the PSG video essay was supposed to come out. Obviously things have changed, but I changed it because earlier in the month while I was on break, I read about Vegalta Sendai's story and also watched this really good documentary. I'll link it down below. And as someone who really holds a special place in their heart for the survivor stories and those stories of overcoming the earthquake of 2011, I wanted to expose those kinds of stories, or at least one of those stories, to you guys. The stories of survivors about losing their family members remind us to not take anything for granted, while those stories of overcoming the disaster really touch our hearts. So I really do hope you guys enjoyed this video, and of course the PSG video essay will come out at some point. But hey, how about a shout out to the patrons? Janos Balas, Alex Rod, Daniel Ortiz, Edgar A.S., Joseph Bonfante, Lacazette Go, Windin Mintang, The Motor Drive, Victor, Dominic Griffin, Emmett Shea, Lewis, Joe Gallagher, Tomicus, Andres Was Never Here, Big Bird, Cash Getty, Exo, Casa, Mark Morcos, and Nathan Trong. If you'd like to join the Patreon, there'll be a link down below in the description and in the annotations up there. Feel free to follow my Twitter for Twitter things. You can also follow my Instagram if you want. Follow my TikTok. I guess we'll go for 6K at this point. And of course, you can follow my inactive Twitch. But until then, I'll see you guys.